I learned very early that the earth rarely gives a clear warning. People imagine earthquakes as sudden events. A road shakes, glass breaks, buildings fall. Everyone remembers the moment the ground moves. But I know what happens before that moment. Pressure grows deep below us for years. Rocks push against rocks. Plates move only a few inches. Small cracks appear where nobody can see them. Then one day, the pressure becomes too great. That was my work. Without realizing it, that had become my marriage too. My name is Elara. I was 41 years old when my life broke open. I worked as a seismologist and deep-crust geophysicist for a federal geological monitoring team in the Pacific Northwest. My job was not beautiful. It was cold, dirty, exhausting, and sometimes dangerous. I loved every part of it. On field trips, I wore heavy boots and old weatherproof jackets. My clothes often smelled like wet soil, sulfur, cold rain, and volcanic rock. I slept in temporary camps near mountains, where the wind shook our tents all night. I carried equipment across sharp fields of black stone. I spent hours watching numbers move across small screens. Those numbers mattered. A small change in temperature could mean rising magma. A strange movement under the ocean could mean pressure on a fault. A few millimeters could become the first sign of a disaster. My team trusted me because I never ignored small signs. I found danger before most people knew it existed. My husband, Kalen, lived in another world. Kalen was 46 and the CEO of one of the largest international disaster relief charities in the world. His organization raised billions of dollars for communities hit by earthquakes, floods, fires, and storms. People loved him. He wore perfect dark suits. He spoke on television with a calm voice. He shook hands with presidents and famous business leaders. At charity dinners, he stood under bright lights and spoke about human pain as if he carried all of it inside his heart. Women called him inspiring. Men called him a visionary. Newspapers called him a modern humanitarian hero. Sometimes reporters called us a perfect couple. I always found that strange. I read fault lines. He read teleprompters. I slept in freezing camps to measure tremors. He slept in luxury hotels while raising money from the disasters I studied. For 15 years, I believed we served the same purpose. I tried to prevent tragedy. He helped people after tragedy happened. During the last 2 years of our marriage, something changed. At first, the change seemed small. Kylan stopped calling me during field trips. Then he stopped asking when I would return home. When I came back after several weeks away, he sometimes kissed my cheek instead of my lips. Our dinners became quiet. He spent more time on his phone. When I asked if something was wrong, he gave me the same tired smile. "You know I love you, Elara." Then he would look away. That hurt more than anger. If he had shouted, I could have shouted back. If he had accused me of something clear, I could have defended myself. Instead, he acted sad, patient, forgiving. One evening, I returned after 26 days near a volcanic zone in Washington. I had bruises on both knees and a cut across one hand. My hair was still damp from the mountain rain. Kalen sat in our living room, wearing a white shirt and dark trousers. A glass of wine rested beside him. He looked at me for several seconds. Then he smiled without warmth. You're back. I stopped near the door. Yes, I thought you were coming tomorrow. I finished early. That's good. He looked back at his tablet. I stood there with my bag beside my feet. I had imagined him walking toward me. I had imagined his arms around me. Instead, I felt like a guest who had arrived too early. Later that night, I finally asked him what was happening between us. He sighed. Elara, I don't want to fight. I don't want to fight either. You're never here. My work? I know. Your work. His voice stayed calm. That made me feel worse. I understand how important your work is, he said. I understand that people depend on you. I have always supported you. I know, but sometimes I feel like I'm married to the earth instead of you. I said nothing. He gave me that sad smile again. You love those fault lines more than you love this marriage. That's not true, isn't it? He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. I looked down at my damaged hands. For the first time, I wondered if he was right. After that conversation, guilt became part of my daily life. I started apologizing before he even complained. I apologized when I answered calls during dinner. I apologized when an emergency meeting interrupted a weekend. I apologized for sleeping early after long flights. I apologized for missing parties. I apologized for my dirty boots near the front door. Each apology made Kalen softer. His gentleness punished me more than anger. He never said, "You are a terrible wife." He said, "I know you're doing your best." He never said, "Your work means nothing." He said, "Not everything important can be measured by machines." He never ordered me to change. He simply looked hurt until I changed myself. I stopped wearing the bright clothes I once liked. I stopped inviting colleagues home because Kalen said our house already felt like a research station. I avoided talking about new discoveries because he became quiet whenever I sounded excited. Little by little, I made myself smaller. I believed that was love. I believed I was saving my marriage. Kalen appeared more successful than ever. His charity opened new offices in Europe and Asia. He attended private dinners with politicians. He gave speeches about sacrifice and responsibility. At one event, he stood before hundreds of donors and said, "Real service means putting human lives above personal comfort." Everyone stood and applauded. I watched from the side of the room. For one strange second, I wondered if his words were meant for me. Later, in the car, he touched my hand. "You looked tired tonight." "I am. You work too hard." "I know. I worry about you." "I'm sorry." He smiled. There it was again. My apology. His reward. I thought we were drifting apart. I thought every month away moved us farther from each other. I thought my ambition had damaged something beautiful. I thought I was losing him slowly. I did not know he was already gone. I did not know how carefully he had arranged my guilt. The first real warning came from the ocean floor. It was early October. My team had tracked an unusual thermal pattern along a highly populated coastal fault zone. At first, the numbers looked wrong. I checked them twice, then 3 times. The deep sensors showed heat movement where we did not expect it. Pressure readings also changed across several monitoring stations. GPS stations showed slow movement over a wide area. The fault was not breaking yet. It was slipping quietly. That frightened me more. A slow slip event could release pressure safely, or it could transfer pressure into another locked section. Our new models pointed toward the second possibility. I spent almost 18 hours inside the Federal Monitoring Center. I studied every result. By the next morning, my conclusion was clear. A major earthquake could strike within days. The danger zone included a coastal city and several smaller communities. Hundreds of thousands of people lived there. We needed to act. A level 5 federal evacuation warning was extreme. We used it only when the evidence crossed a very high level. My evidence crossed it. I began preparing the warning. That morning, our primary federal servers entered a scheduled security maintenance period. We still had internal access, but several large encrypted topography files could not move through the normal system. I needed those files immediately. Kylan's charity used a secure emergency cloud approved for temporary cooperation with several government agencies. I had used it before. I logged in from my federal workstation. I typed the emergency access code and began to transfer the maps. Then I noticed something strange. A directory appeared next to the relief preparation files, Project Subduction. The name caught my attention because subduction was one of the main subjects of my work. I almost ignored it. Kalen's organization often used scientific words for internal projects. Then I noticed the file size. It was enormous. I opened the directory information. Financial records appeared inside it. That made no sense. I looked closer. His charity should have been preparing emergency money for the exact coastal region I had identified. Instead, millions of dollars had moved away from that region. I felt the first cold touch of fear. I opened another record, then another. The money moved through several companies. From there, it went to an offshore investment fund. I searched the fund name, Fiona Mercer. I knew her. Everyone in Kylan's social world knew Fiona. She was 32, beautiful, intelligent, and extremely successful. She managed a private Wall Street fund. It specialized in high-risk bets tied to disasters, insurance, construction, and damaged property. I had met her 3 times. She always wore sharp dresses and expensive jewelry. The last time we met, she hugged me and said, "I don't know how you survive in the mountains. I need room service after one long meeting." Kalen laughed. I laughed too. Now her name sat inside a secret financial directory on my husband's server. My hands became cold. I should have stopped. I should have called security. Instead, I kept reading. My mind worked the same way it worked during field analysis. Observe, compare, test, do not guess. Project Subduction had existed for 4 years. I found dates, transfers, insurance contracts, property sales, investment instructions. Then I saw something that made my stomach turn. My own seismic reports. Not public reports, not old studies, classified early warning data. Some files bore timestamps from before I sent them to federal review. I leaned closer to the screen. Someone had taken my information before the government received it. I cross-checked the dates against the financial transactions. My breath stopped. 4 years earlier, I detected an earthquake risk near a smaller coastal region. 3 days before the public warning, Fiona's fund short-sold several real estate companies. They were all in that area. After the earthquake, those companies lost value. Her fund made millions. The same pattern appeared again 6 months later, then again, and again. Each time, my early scientific data moved through Kalen's system. Each time, Fiona made enormous trades before the disaster. They had turned earthquakes into a business plan. I stared at the screen. For several seconds, I could not understand what I saw. My husband built his public life around helping disaster victims, but behind the speeches and cameras, he funneled private warnings into profit from their suffering. I kept searching, then I found the communication logs. Some messages discussed money, some discussed me, some discussed both. The first message I read came from Kalen. Elara confirmed the coastal movement. Her official report goes tomorrow. Move before the market sees it, Fiona answered. Already done. Another message followed. She suspects nothing? Kalen replied. She barely suspects her own shadow these days. I felt pressure in my chest. I opened older messages. I found hotel reservations, private flights, photographs, messages sent after midnight. The affair had lasted 4 years. 4 years. I remembered anniversaries, birthdays, Christmas mornings, his hand on my back at public events, his sad eyes when he told me I worked too much. While I apologized, he slept with her. While I tried to save our marriage, he laughed about me. A message from 8 months earlier appeared. Fiona wrote, "Did your scientist cry again?" Kalen answered, "Of course." Then another line, "She honestly thinks we drifted apart because of her career." My vision blurred. I forced myself to keep reading. Let her believe she lost me slowly. It keeps her desperate and focused on her little rocks. I moved away from the screen. My chair struck the wall behind me. For months, I had blamed myself. He knew. Not only did he know, he enjoyed it. I remembered every quiet dinner, every disappointed look, every gentle sentence that made me feel selfish. None of it happened by accident. He had built my guilt carefully. Then I found the newest messages. They were about the earthquake I had just discovered. Fiona wrote, "How certain is the coastal event?" Kalen replied, "Very. Value? About 80 million, if everything works." I stopped breathing. Fiona asked, "And the federal warning?" Kalen answered, "Handled." My fingers moved quickly. I opened the federal transmission record stored beside their messages. Someone had changed my emergency transmission codes. The changes looked small. One security address had been replaced. One confirmation path had been redirected. To most people, the code would appear normal, but it would fail at the final stage. My warning would never reach the evacuation network. Then, I found his final message. The city takes the hit. The warning fails under her name. Investigators find her access history. She gets charged for criminal negligence. Fiona answered, "And us? We moved the fund to Geneva." Then Kalen added another message. "She's just a dirty mole. Let her get buried." I sat perfectly still. Outside the monitoring room, someone laughed near the coffee machine. A phone rang. A printer started. Normal life continued around me. Inside me, everything changed. Kalen did not only cheat on me, he planned to let thousands of people die. He planned to use my work to make $80 million. He planned to destroy my career. He planned to send me to prison, and he planned to escape with Fiona. My tears had protected him. My guilt had made me easier to control. For years, I believed our marriage died because I stayed away too long. Now, I understood the truth. We had not drifted apart. He had moved away on purpose while making me believe I pushed him. The guilt disappeared. It did not fade slowly. It vanished. In its place came something cold and clear. I looked at the altered code. Then I looked at the financial records. I copied everything, every message, every transfer, every file, every hidden account. I made 3 encrypted copies. I moved them outside Kalen's system. Then I returned the server exactly to its earlier state. I closed Project Subduction. I completed my map transfer. I logged out. When I stood, my legs shook once. Then they became steady. I did not feel like a wife anymore. I felt like a scientist facing a dangerous fault. The emotional part of me wanted to drive home. It wanted to throw his phone across the room. It wanted to scream his name until the walls shook. But I knew something about pressure. Release it too early, and you lose control. Hold it. Study it. Choose the exact point of failure. I washed my face in the bathroom. Then I returned to my team. Continue preparing the evacuation models, I said. One of my scientists looked at me. Are you okay? Yes. My voice surprised me. It sounded calm. For the first time in years, I was not apologizing. That evening, I went home. Kalen stood in the kitchen when I entered. He wore a gray sweater and held a glass of water. You're late, I know. He waited. Usually, I would explain. I would tell him about the fault. I would describe the emergency meeting. Then I would apologize. This time, I understood that he expected the performance. So, I gave it to him. I'm sorry, I said. His shoulders relaxed. It's fine. No. You've been patient with me for years. He watched me carefully. I lowered my eyes. I know I haven't been a good wife. For a moment, I hated myself for saying it. Then I remembered the messages. She's just a dirty mole. Let her get buried. Kalen walked closer. He took my arms in both hands. Elara, I never wanted you to feel that way. He only spent years making sure I did. I want to do better, I said. His face softened. The saint returned. We'll figure it out. He kissed my forehead. I let him. Behind his shoulder, I saw his phone on the counter. A message appeared. Fiona. He turned the screen down. Instead, I leaned against him for 1 second. He believed he still controlled me. That was exactly what I needed. The next morning, I contacted Beckett Hale. Beckett was 49. He served as chief auditor for the United Nations Global Disaster Risk Bureau. I knew him professionally. Kalen hated him. That alone told me something. For almost 3 years, Beckett had questioned several financial movements inside Kalen's charity. Each time, lawyers blocked him. Donors defended Kalen. Political friends protected him. Beckett never stopped looking. I sent him one short message from a secure federal channel. I found Project Subduction. His answer came 4 minutes later. Where? In my husband's private relief cloud. A pause. Then, do not use your home phone. Meet me at the Federal Monitoring Center. He arrived that night. Beckett looked different from Kalen in almost every way. He did not wear expensive suits. His dark jacket looked old but strong. His hair had more gray than I remembered. He carried one small case and no assistant. I led him into a restricted room. For almost 2 hours, I showed him everything. He did not say he was sorry for me. I appreciated that more than I could explain. When he finished reading Kalen's messages about me, his jaw tightened, but he did not offer pity. He pointed at the altered transmission code. Can this stop the warning? Yes. Can you prove the change came from Kalen's network? Yes. Can you restore the real warning path? Yes. He looked directly at me. Then, we save the city. First, something inside me became stronger. Not because he rescued me. He did not. He simply understood that I did not need rescue. I needed an ally. I showed him my earthquake models. Beckett studied the maps across the wall. You built these? My team and I did. He moved closer. This level of prediction is extraordinary. I looked at him. Kalen had spent years calling my work an obsession. Beckett looked at the same work and saw power. Your mind is a force of nature, Elara, he said. I almost cried, but not from sadness. I turned back to the monitors. Then let's use it. We worked through the night. First, we protected the real evacuation. I created a separate encrypted path through a military emergency network. The warning would reach federal and state response teams without touching the compromised server. The evacuation order went out before sunrise. Emergency agencies moved quietly at first. Schools closed. Hospitals moved high-risk patients. Coastal roads became one-way evacuation routes. Military transport units entered the area. Public warnings followed. Kalen did not know the real system worked. His stolen feed showed a failed transmission. Exactly as he expected. At breakfast the next morning, he read messages on his phone. I watched his face. He looked almost pleased. Big day? I asked. Always. He smiled. Geneva preparations. His humanitarian award ceremony took place in 6 days. I spread jam across my toast. Congratulations again. Thank you. You deserve it. That sentence almost made me laugh. Instead, I drank my coffee. The second part of our plan involved Fiona. Kalen and Fiona trusted stolen data because it had made them rich for 4 years. So we gave them more. I built a false seismic model. It was not a simple fake. A simple fake would fail. I created a complete model for an expensive inland region. It was hundreds of miles from the real coastal danger. The false data showed deep pressure movement, thermal changes, surface strain, predicted rupture zones. Every part looked real because I built it using real scientific methods. But the event did not exist. Beckett watched the final model appear across the screen. They'll believe this? They believe they understand my science. I looked at him. They don't. We placed the model inside a hidden route that Colin's stolen system already used. We did not send it directly to him. That mattered. A greedy man trusts information more when he thinks he stole it. 2 hours later, the trap moved. Beckett received financial alerts from his international investigation team. Fiona began shifting money. 10 million, 20 million, 40 million, then almost everything. She used heavy borrowing and placed huge short positions against the inland property market. Kaylin expected another disaster, another fortune. Instead, the market stayed strong. By the day of the Geneva summit, it even began rising. Their position became dangerous. But Fiona refused to leave it. She believed the earthquake could strike at any hour. I understood her thinking. She had spent 4 years winning. Success had made her careless. Greed finished the work. Meanwhile, investigators built the legal case. The documents connected Kaylin to wire fraud, market manipulation, stolen federal data, and deliberate interference with an emergency warning system. The most serious charge came from his plan to stop the evacuation. He knew people could die. He wanted the disaster because it increased his profit. International authorities prepared arrest orders. Kaylin still knew nothing. The night before Geneva, he packed beside our bed. He placed cufflinks inside a small black case. "You should come," he said. "To the summit?" "Yes." I looked at him. "I thought you didn't want me at these events." He smiled. "I think it would be good for us." Of course, he wanted his guilty wife beside him while he accepted a humanitarian award. One final photograph, one final lie. "I'll come," I said. He walked over and touched my cheek. "I'm glad." That night, he slept deeply. I did not sleep at all, but I did not feel tired. Pressure had reached the fault. All that remained was the release. The International Disaster Relief Summit filled one of Geneva's grandest halls. 500 guests sat under golden lights. Political leaders filled the first rows. Billionaires spoke quietly with charity directors. News cameras pointed toward the stage. Kaylin stood behind the curtain in a custom tuxedo. A giant screen displayed his face beside 3 words: Lifetime Humanitarian Award. Fiona sat in the front row. Diamonds covered her neck. She looked calm, rich, untouchable. I arrived after the ceremony started. For years, Kaylin preferred me in simple clothes. He said bright colors did not suit serious women. I believed him. Not that night. I wore a custom silk gown in deep volcanic crimson. The material moved softly around my legs as I walked. I did not choose it for him. I chose it because I liked it. For the first time in years, that was enough. The large oak doors opened. Several people turned, then more. I walked down the central aisle. Kaylin saw me. His smile disappeared. He was on stage beside the summit director. "Elara?" he said into the microphone. The room heard him. I kept walking. Fiona turned in her seat. Her eyes moved from my dress to my face. Something in my expression frightened her. I reached the front. Kaylin stepped away from the podium. "What are you doing?" I looked at him, finishing my work. The screens behind him went black. The audience became quiet. Then Beckett's face appeared for 1 second. After that, the first document filled the screen: International Arrest Authorization. The second screen showed offshore wire transfers. The third showed Fiona's fund. Then came the messages, Kaylin's messages. My name flashed across the hall. She honestly thinks we drifted apart because of her career. People began whispering. Let her believe she lost me slowly. Kaylin turned white. "Turn that off." Nobody moved. The next message filled the screen. The warning fails under her name. Then, the city takes the hit. Then, she gets charged. Then, we move the fund to Geneva. The hall filled with shouting. Kaylin grabbed the microphone. These are fake. Beckett walked onto the stage from the side. No, he said. They are verified. Fiona stood. Her phone rang, then rang again. She looked at the screen. Her face changed. I knew what she saw. The inland market had moved sharply upward. Her short positions failed. Her lenders demanded money. She had borrowed too much. Her entire fund faced an immediate margin call. No, she whispered. Another alert sounded, then another. She pushed through the first row. Kaylin stared at her. Fiona, we have to leave. How bad? She looked at him. Everything. The word cut through the noise. Everything. $80 million. Borrowed positions. Hidden accounts. Their future. Gone. Donors began shouting at Kaylin. Several people walked out. Others called assistants and legal teams. The summit director stepped back from him as if Kaylin carried a disease. Then agents arrived. Interpol officers entered from both sides of the stage. Federal marshals moved toward Fiona. She tried to reach the exit. She made it 6 steps. 2 marshals stopped her. Kaylin backed toward the podium. This is insane. An officer took his arm. Kaylin Vale, you are under arrest. Kaylin pulled away. Do you know who I am? The officer turned him around and forced his hands behind his back. Metal closed around his wrists. The click was quiet, but to me, it felt larger than any applause he ever received. Kaylin looked at the cameras, then at the donors, then at Fiona. Finally, he looked at me. His perfect public face disappeared. Elara. I said nothing. He moved toward me, but the officers held him. Elara, please? His voice broke. It was business. I stared at him. I didn't want to hurt you. A strange calm steadied me. You planned to send me to prison. I was angry. I made mistakes. You planned to let a city die. No, you don't understand. I understand exactly. His eyes filled with tears. We drifted apart. There it was, the old weapon, the sentence that controlled me for years. But it had no power now. You're my wife, he said. Help me. I looked at the famous humanitarian. Without the stage lights and prepared speeches, he looked very small, not powerful, not brilliant, not misunderstood, just empty. I stepped closer. The room became quiet enough for people near us to hear. I didn't lose you slowly, Kaylin. His eyes stayed on mine. I just finally cleared the rubble. I turned away. Behind me, he shouted my name. I did not look back. Outside, the Geneva night felt cold and clean. I took one deep breath. Beckett came through the doors several minutes later. He carried a warm coat. He offered it to me without a word. I put it on. Did the coastal evacuation finish? I asked. Yes. Casualties? None from the main event zone so far. My eyes closed for 1 second. That mattered more than Kaylin, more than Fiona, more than the money. People lived. Families lived. Children slept somewhere safe that night because the warning reached them. I looked at Beckett. Then we did our job. He smiled. Yes. 1 year later, I stood near the edge of a mountain caldera under a clear morning sky. Below me, new seismic stations covered the region. They belonged to my institute. My institute, after the trial, Several research groups asked me to lead a new independent global seismic program. Governments and universities provided support. My team grew faster than I expected. Our goal stayed simple: find danger early, share information honestly, protect lives, no hidden investors, no private deals, no saints, inexpensive suits. Beckett visited often. At first, we worked together. Then we became friends. Slowly, that friendship became something more. There were no games, no guilt, no punishment hidden inside soft words. He loved that I worked hard. I loved that he never asked me to become smaller. That morning, he stood beside me near the caldera. I showed him a new sensor reading. He looked at the numbers and frowned. "I understand almost none of this." I laughed. "That may be your smartest scientific statement." He laughed too. The sound carried across the open ground. For years, I believed a woman could lose love by caring too much about her work. I believed distance always meant failure. I believed I needed to apologize for my purpose. I was wrong. Sometimes, a relationship does not slowly drift apart. Sometimes, one person quietly damages the ground, while the other person keeps blaming herself for the cracks. Kalen wanted me ashamed. He wanted me tired. He wanted me weak enough to carry the blame for his choices. I stopped carrying it. I stopped apologizing. And once I did, I finally saw the truth. I had not destroyed my marriage by becoming too strong. I had simply married a man who needed me to believe I was weak. I looked across the sunlit mountains. The ground beneath my boots felt hard and steady. For the first time in many years, so did I. Have you ever blamed yourself for the growing distance in a relationship, only to learn someone used your guilt to hide a betrayal? How did you stop apologizing and take your power back? Tell me your story in the comments below. If you love stories about brilliant women exposing toxic con artists and finding solid ground again, please like and subscribe to Teddy English Story. See you next time.